Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, and welcome to another edition of the Life West Leadership Line. Today, I have two very special guests with me. I have Dr. David Meyer and I have Dr. Julie Mayer Hunt, and father-daughter combination. They actually have three generations, right, of chiropractors in the family. Travis, that's Julie's son. Julie and I graduated together. We were both graduated in 1981 from Life Chiropractic College back then. Isn't that correct, Julie? And David, of course, graduated probably a year after I was born in 1957, right, David?
Right.
1957, Palmer graduate. He's starting his 65th year as a chiropractor right now. Still practicing, still has his hands on people, though it might be, once a week or whatever it might be, but still in the trenches. And, I am so excited to have both of you with us today. Father, daughter, generations of chiropractor, and yet, just the historical value that's there. And Julie, you've done amazing things, which we'll touch on. But welcome to the Life West Leadership Line to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's kind of jump in for a second here, David. Listen, you graduated, in 1957. That means you probably started school around 1955, something like that. I'm not sure. Talk to us. Tell us. 54? 54? Good. How'd you get, how did you find chiropractic, or how did chiropractic find you?
It was a beautiful experience. I was called upon to hook up an x-ray for a doctor. And so once I hooked it up, then he called me in and he said, did you do a good job on it? I said, yes, sir. He says, what I want to do now is get an x-ray of you because there's nobody else around. I said, oh, well, okay. So I am 20 years old. I'd already been in college for 2 years studying law and engineering, and both of them fizzled out because I realized it wasn't for me. There I am, been called in to do this x-ray work, and I finished it. And then he said, well, we got to take an x-ray of you. I said, oh, okay. So he did the x-ray, and then he comes out of the dark room a little while later. He's very upset. And I didn't know this doctor. I had never seen him before in my life, but I don't know how I got called in to do this exam and do the hookup for his new x-ray machine, but there I was. And after he looked at it, he said, you're a mess. And I thought, well, I've had a lot of health problems. That's what went through my mind. I didn't think he told me I looked like a mess. Yeah. So the next thing that happened, he says, I need to treat you. And that sort of concerned me. So I volunteered. I said, okay, just don't hurt me. Because I didn't even know I was a chiropractic doctor. Yeah. I was hooking up an x-ray machine. I didn't know anything about this. I was just a technician. So he went ahead and adjusted me. And I thought, I didn't feel anything. I thought, that's good. I'm out of here. But he said, no, I want to see you. And so I came back on Monday. And by Monday, I was feeling so much better. I couldn't believe it. The reason I got, just a week before that, I got called up for the draft. And the draft said, after they examined 300 of the finest young bucks that they could find in Columbus, Ohio, they said, we don't want you because you've had asthma. And I said, why? He said, we want to win this war, so that's why we don't want you. I was sort of laughing inside. I didn't want to tell him I was happy. But then the next thing that happened the next week was this x-ray. And then immediately he adjusted me and treated me. And I didn't even know what was going on. And I wondered, how could he treat me? And I didn't feel any pain. I thought he was going to maybe jerk my head or something, but he didn't. It was a very gentle cervical adjustment. And I felt better. and my headaches went away. And within a week's time, my asthma went away. So I thought, what am I doing in law and engineering when I could be in chiropractic and help people?
Yeah.
Way.
Yeah.
So immediately I started thinking in that direction, and the chiropractor said, I want you to come into practice with me. I said, hey, that sounds cool, but I couldn't imagine anything like that happening that far ahead. But it was a roller coaster ride from that point on. My health improved from a sickly young man to a healthy young man. And it was just a beautiful experience. And when I went to Palmer College, naturally, that's where he had gone. So I went to Palmer College, and you all right?
Oh, yeah.
You're good.
And first thing I noticed there was there were a lot of neat students. And one of the students was Sid Williams, was a classmate of mine, and then Nell Williams.
Yeah.
They were great people to be with every day, and we had large classes. So there might be 250 students in one class at a time. So that went on, and then another friend of mine popped in the scene from England, and his name was Reggie Gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reggie and I got to be close friends, and we joined Toastmasters and a lot of other things we did together. But the main thing was that we just saw that chiropractic was really growing, and it was incredible.
Well, David, I will tell you this, that first of all, I'm thankful that you got that adjustment after you saw Uncle Sam, right? Because you saw Uncle Sam before that, and they said you were too sick, and then we got the adjustment in a week. So just think if it would have been a week's difference of time, that might have changed something. And we're thankful that you were able to get to chiropractic school. Were you in Columbus at the time, or where
Yes.
were you? So you're from
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, good.
That's where I grew up and went to Ohio State. And so it all started transpiring from there.
Nice. And so you get to school, right? And it's 1950, what did we say, 1953, 54?
1054, yeah.
54, you're at school, and you're in the class with Sid, you're in the class with Nell, Dee Dee Umber was in your class, because I know they all went to school together.
And the 250 other classmates besides.
Right. And there's BJ, and all this stuff. So share with us, what was BJ like? And, I don't know what kind of relationship you had. Who else was in your class, I believe, was Chappie Reaver, Herbert Ross Reaver's son, because he graduated
from Ohio.
Yep, exactly, from Cincinnati. What was it like, to be around BJ, and what was the school like at that time? And what was, as a college president, I want to know, what was there,
Interesting happened one day. I was going up the stairway, going to my class, and BJ was right behind me. And so I sort of slowed down, let him pass me. And he came up to this young man who looked very proper, had a suit on and everything, and a beard. And he pulled out this cigar. And immediately BJ started talking to us, and he said, "Let me see that cigar." So he took the cigar away from the student, and he said, "You're too young to smoke." He says, "I'll take your seat." And then he other two cigars out with, and then he came into class and sat down with us. And we thought, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible. So that was probably my first encounter with BJ personally. Then we had many, many other personal experiences with BJ. I worked with him developing certain things that he was working on, and evidently he trusted me because he turned it all over to me, and I just worked on those projects. And
were they like engineering? Were you doing was he looking to build?
It was some of the chiropractic equipment that they were phasing out, and he wanted me to take it all apart and put it in boxes, all the parts and everything. And it was probably a 3-week operation, and so he approved of what I did then. So then he gave me another job, And it just went from good to better.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And, they talk about BJ, did you ever have the opportunity to get adjusted by BJ or by, anyone in the BJ Palmer Clinic or the well-known, teachers at the time?
No, I didn't. But BJ was every week, like on a Friday, he called the whole school into class. And you had to be there. You had to be there at 8:00, and he's ready to talk. And he gives a lecture every Friday morning, first thing, and all the students are there. And he would just wait for somebody to show up a little bit later. And so there was always somebody that came in later, and he would point to them. He said, "Come up here, come up." He said, "You've got to be on time here. This is important." So the next person that came in, he even made more fun of him because he was later. But it was hilarious just to be there, and he would teach chiropractic right from the podium every week, and you just didn't want to miss it. I was wanting to record it, but he said, "No, you can't record this."
Yeah, he wouldn't let that happen. No. Were there other people, like what other names are around campus? Was that some of our viewers will know the names of these people, but not necessarily.
One of my favorite instructors was Galen Price.
Sure.
Galen Price was Mr. Philosophy at the college. And another real close friend that I enjoyed was Herbert Himes. He taught anatomy. And that was one of my favorite subjects because I had already studied that in college. And so each day, I would have a chance to sit with Galen Price, who understood chiropractic. He had more philosophy in his little finger than most people had in their body.
Yeah.
And so we just loved the instructors. And it was love at first sight for me. And I thought, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I gained my health through one adjustment and continuing to have chiropractic care. And besides that, I'm going to become a chiropractor, then I can help other people.
Yeah.
That was exciting. And so it's still 65 years later, I still love it. And I treated 2 patients already this morning. And I just love doing that.
I love it. I love it. I want to move into like, when you went into practice and what happened. And Julie, I want to kind of get your viewpoints as a child about, watching your dad as a chiropractor. But before we move away from Palmer College, I mean, you're in school with Sid, Dr. Sid Williams, Dr. Reggie Gold, were they just like large personalities at the time? Were they quiet men who just kind of, grew in their path? What was it like?
Well, Sid, for instance, he was a salesman. They said that he could sell an Eskimo refrigerators. And he was that kind of a personality. I mean, when he'd come up to you, he would start talking, and it was very, very dominant. He was just a great person to be around.
I love it. Love it. How about, and then how about Reggie?
Oh, Reggie. Reggie was so dynamic. I got to tell you just a quick story.
Please.
It was our first year. And what happened was this one teacher, I'm not going to mention his name, but he picked on a kid. And he said, "I want you to stand up." So he called him my name. He knew all the names. There's 250 of us sitting there. And he said, this student is an obstetrical mistake. Well, everybody just roared, they thought. And he felt naturally like nothing. And he said, "You all know what an obstetrical mistake is, don't you?" He says, "That's where they threw the baby away and kept the placenta." So, placenta. Well, Reggie Gold got out of his seat and he started walking up toward the instructor. And the instructor said, "Sit down." And Reggie said, "You sit down." He kept right on going up there and stood on the stage with them. And he said, "I want you to apologize to this student." He says, "I'll never do it." He said, "You're cooked." And so he left the stage. And the next day, he went up and talked to BJ that afternoon. And he was history. He never came back and taught anymore at the college.
Interesting.
It was just interesting to see Reggie stand up in front of 250 people. We were all laughing, and he was upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they were making fun of this guy. And his name was Vince Pappalardo. And I don't know where he is now, but I pray he made it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because you think about Reggie and you think about Sid and, you know, and other greats, you know, yourself. And it's like they were there for something more than just, you know, being in school. They were there to become something, right? And really understood the purpose of what chiropractic is, right? And I'm so honored to hear you say that story because, you know, that doesn't belong in our world, let alone in a classroom, developing people, you know, and, you know, I love it. I love it. I love that someone like Reggie would stand up and do that, you know, it's beautiful. So you leave school, you go to Ohio, Florida, where do you go?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of going to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
My father came over and said, and I've never been to Oklahoma, that I had read that the exams in the state of Oklahoma were a little bit easier. And I knew I had to pass all these tests. So I said, my dad, he said, "Where are you going to go to practice?" And I told him Oklahoma. He laughed. Now, my father was only a third grade student. He grew up in Europe, in Austria. But he knew he had a lot of wisdom and a lot of savvy. I said, "Well, where do you think I ought to go?" He said, "Go to Florida." He said, "There's many people waiting there for you." And I thought, that sounds like a good idea. Father, because I always trusted my father, is he never steered me wrong. So I immediately started studying for the exam in Florida, which was the hardest exam back then to pass because there were a few complications.
Yeah.
And so I studied every day for 6 hours a day for 6 months. And I thought, I'm ready for the exam now. They can ask me anything, and at least I'll get 70%. And there were 6,000 that took the exam.
And we should include it as medical doctors, chiropractors, dentists. Am I right?
No dentists,
No
just
dentists.
Osteopaths, chiropractors,
Osteopaths.
and medical doctors.
All taking the same exam. It was basically
It was called the basic science exam.
Yeah.
You had to pass this. This is ridiculous. You had to pass that before you could take your state board, chiropractic, osteopathic, or medicine. So 6,000 took the test. And that day, only 300 passed. And I was blessed. I sneaked through somehow.
That's great. Well, you put the time in.
Hey, yeah, everybody said, "Dave, you must have cheated." I said, "Yeah, I guess, but I don't know how."
So David, then you passed that. Now you're eligible to take the state.
Now I'm eligible to take the chiropractic state board. Well, that's a snap. I could just walk down the line and do that one. But I had studied for that one too, in the preparation for the basic science.
Nice. And then where'd you go? Clearwater?
Yeah, went right to Clearwater.
Wow. I mean, Clearwater must have been like nothing back. We're talking about 1958, something like that, right?
And
wow.
The town was small, and my wife and I came down to Florida, and we said, "Well, let's drive around and see what it looks like." So we went all along the coast of Florida. I wanted to be on the coast, and went all the way down to Miami, and then all the way back up to Jacksonville, and all the way back down to St. Pete and Sarasota and everything. And we decided at the time, Clearwater was an ideal spot to start.
Yeah.
That's where we started.
And you haven't stopped. You haven't stopped since. Julie, where were you born?
In Clearwater in 57, right after they got here, within a month or so.
My God, this is just incredible. So, Julie, you grow up. We're very close in age. You're younger than I am. You look younger than I am, and you act younger than I am. You got a young heart. And no one would ever believe we're both grandparents, right? But here you are growing up, and your dad is the chiropractor in town, so to speak, right? What was that like?
I got to tell you something. She's not growing up that bad. She went to school right across the street from the office, and every day she'd sort of drift out to go to the bathroom at the school, and then she'd come across the street and sit in my office where I was treating patients. And finally, it happened. She stood there one day and looking at me, and she said, "Dad, I got to tell you something." She's only 6 years old now. 6 years old. And she said, "Dad, I want to be a chiropractor just like you." And I said, "No, you don't. You want to be better than me." She has been better than me, and she is. So that started it.
Wow. And Julie, you would leave school? Was this after school or during school? You go to the bathroom?
During school, there were sometimes nuns chasing me down. I found out Dad started locking the back door, so I had to come through the front door with them all chasing me.
and then the nuns became patients.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That was a blessing too.
I love it. So, and what was it like, Julie? I mean, we were talking about this is 1960 something, and your dad's the chiropractor in town, obviously, and he's got a big practice, and he's doing upper cervical work, right, David? You were just doing.
Yeah. And let me just share one thing. Jay called me aside one time after we worked on a project together. He said, "David, I want to tell you something." I said, "I'm all ears, And he said, I want you to remember one thing." He says, "If you will learn how to adjust the atlas." Of course, I had already been studying different things in chiropractic in all the classes. But he says, "If you learn how to adjust this one bone, atlas, and do it perfectly," he said, "that's really all you have to do." And I said, "Really?" I'm tucking that away in my mind. It's there for life. I said, "I don't have to learn how to do all this other stuff. All I have to do is learn how to adjust one vertebra, atlas, perfectly." Well, that was my goal. So from then on, I focused on one vertebra. Doesn't matter what they were teaching in school. I knew ultimately I had to know how to adjust one vertebra and clear all the blockages of nerve, and that patient was going to get well. BJ said, "That's all you have to do." I said, "Wonderful, I'll do it." And so that's 65 years, I've treated thousands of patients, and every patient comes in, whether it's one end or the other end, wherever they're hurting, I've adjusted one vertebra, atlas, and things cleared, and they got well. And that just turned on everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so beautiful. And when you think about it, and Julie, obviously, you're doing tremendous things in the upper cervical world, from the council to all the different things, which we'll talk about in a second. And you look at David, the people, even before you, way before you, they were all adjusting atlas, and the miracles that were happening, which I don't call miracles because, the miracle is the human body, right? And the normalcy is without nerve interference, right? That's when we get to really express ourselves. But to see that and to see just, not just the principle and philosophy behind what you do, but the education and the allowing people to understand the brainstem and to be able to see that how their body operates, right? And the science behind it, right? And along with the art and the philosophy, it's the whole package. I mean, it's just.
It is. Yeah. And patients sit up and say, "I don't believe it. I feel better already. Yeah. I don't have to wait 2 weeks." And it happens every day.
Yeah.
As you, doctor.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. And listen, I think all techniques are great. I think that there's a place for all techniques, and there's certain people who need certain techniques. And I totally understand that and totally respect that, you know. But when you look at someone doing upper cervical, and, you know, Julie, that's all you've ever done, right? So
Right.
all you've ever done. And you look at someone doing upper cervical, there's a certain line that you have to hold. You know, and I know you refer patients out, you know, just like people refer patients to you, right? You know, of course, and we all work together, we do that. But there's a line that you hold on you know, a scientific, I don't know where the line crosses from science to philosophy, but there's a line because you know the craniocervical joint, you know what's happening there, right, Julie?
Yeah, absolutely. And I go back, DJ moved to Sarasota back in 58.
Oh, way back. Yeah.
Anyhow, so Dad would take us down. Apparently, I was bounced on DJ's knee a number of times, and Dad went down and took us with him to visit DJ. And, you know, I think how blessed I was to have any of that connection.
Yeah. We went down one weekend. I thought, well, we'll just have a week away. So I got my both daughters, Julie and Kathy, and they were maybe a year and a half apart. And so we drove down to check out Sarasota. There's a lot to see there. While I was there the second day, I called BJ. And I thought, what am I going to say to him? I've never called him on the phone before. Here I am, just a beginning doctor. And so he answered the phone. And I said, hi, BJ, this is David Mary. He said, yeah, I remember you, David. He says, how you doing? I said, I'm doing fine. And then he didn't say anything. He just left me hanging there. And I said, well, he says, well, do you want to come and see me? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. He says, come on over right away. And so when we came over to his house, we were just like the royalty. He opened the door for us, invited us in, sat down, my wife and I and my two little kids. And poor Julie and Kathy were running all over his beautiful mansion. And there were monuments of art antiques. And I thought, don't touch them, you'll break. I thought I'll never get out of this alive. He said, don't worry about a thing. And so he brought Julie and got her sitting on his lap, and he took a shine to Julie right away. And then Kathy did the same thing. And so it was just and so he talked all day. And come 6 o'clock, he says, we got to have dinner. And I thought, I wonder where we're going to go. He says, my cook's off today, so I'm going to go in and cook dinner. He had it all prepared.
Oh, wow.
And so he served us dinner. And then when he got done serving dinner, he'd serve dessert. And I thought, this is incredible. What a host he is. And I'm just embarrassed that, I'm imposing on him like this. Yeah. And I'm keeping my eye on the girls because they're running around all over the place. And I can't keep track of them and talk to him. But he talked and shared stories about the elephant that they found. And he took this elephant and put him on water skis. And they actually pulled the elephant. I saw it. You put him on water skis. The elephant's he's not waving at you with one hand, though.
Yeah.
Holding on tight. And he was gone. He's probably the only elephant that I ever knew that water skied.
He's great.
This went on all day long. And then finally he said, well, you are going to spend the night with me. And I said, oh, I can't do that to you, BJ. I said, with all these beds, and I'm thinking you got a clean house and all, and you don't have any help. So I sort of edged out and I said, no, we got other plans. So we went off to a hotel that night. But that was the most memorable experience until years later, we met at a meeting and he said, what's going on in the profession? He says, I want to talk to you specifically, David. He says, what we need is another organization in Florida. He said, we have a state organization in Florida, but it's not doing a good job. And so he said, I want you to start another organization, and a straight organization that knows what's going on and looking out for the profession instead of doing a lot of mixing of modalities and so forth. And I said, okay, I'll start working on that. And so it was within a few weeks, we got together a group. It was amazing. A group of 100 guys got together, and we started another state organization. And it's doing so well.
Florida Chiropractic Society.
Yeah, yeah. So that is incredible. And that was at BJ's request.
Yeah, at his house.
At his house. Yeah. That is incredible. I mean, when you look at the history of of chiropractic, I mean, we're 126 years old, so it's not like we're 2,000 years old, but it's still so close to home. And it's so cool that, Julie, we could be sitting here with your father and he could be sharing stories about how this organization started 60 something years ago, whatever it might be, at the request of BJ Palmer. And, the lineage is just so short still, that, it's just so amazing. And I'm so honored to have you guys with us today. Julie, I know we're going to do our own leadership line, Julie. Today was about your dad, but, I just want everyone to know this, that, that all the work that David did in the state of Florida and, what he's done for in the technical world, around chiropractic and upper cervical. And I love, David, that your engineering mind, along with your heart to serve, and then the results you got, from that first chiropractor that you put the x-ray unit in, I mean, we know that you were destined to be a chiropractor. There's, like you said earlier, you were chosen, it's just so cool. Then Julie, you came along, which we'll talk about on another talk, but the things you've done with the upper cervical community, not just with, orthospinology, not just with Atlas Orthogonal, not just with NUCA, with everybody together, bringing everybody together and making that. I know BJ would be so proud right now to have all of these different groups, which they are, together, and sharing research and sharing what they're finding, and, not having these wars as compared to having, let's get together. Like, what are you doing, and what's going on with like CBCT, Combi, and everyone is working. It's the greatest thing that I've witnessed. And I have to tell you this, I really mean this. It's the greatest thing that I've witnessed in technique, in chiropractic, in my young 40 years in chiropractic. It's the greatest thing that I've witnessed. And I really mean that, Julie. And we'll get into that in another one. Julie, want to share something?
Oh, I wanted to say, I grew up in this world. I was at conferences with my dad from the time I was 8, 9 years old. I remember seeing Roy Sweat present the first time when I was 9 years old. And it was my heart to get everybody back together on the same page.
Yeah, well, you did it. And David, you should be very proud, I mean, I know you're proud of her.
I'm very proud of her. And it's a great blessing for me to see this take place. I don't know how it unfolded when my first adjustment, and I started to get well instantly, and I thought, this is unprecedented, and let's call it a miracle. But what it did, it changed my whole life.
Yeah, and the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Plus all the chiropractors you sent to school, plus all the, I love that quote by BJ, which they could put it on my epitaph, and I'd be very thrilled, that, we never know how far reaching something we may say, think, or do today can affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And it is
like one candle.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The one candle. Yep. And it's so true. So David, thank you. I want to ask you one final question, and we're going to wrap up. And my question that I have for you is 50 years from now, You know, you're hanging out with BJ and everybody else and Galen Price and whoever else up at the pearly gates and just chilling and talking chiropractic. And you get a glimpse to like kind of look down and see, you know, what's going on and, you know, in the world with chiropractic. Share with us in like a minute or less what that vision you'd like to see. What do you want to see as far as where chiropractic is at in 50 years from now?
I really look forward to looking down and seeing health returning to our nation, and the medical profession and the drug profession beginning to fight one another. And as a result, chiropractic will raise to be the highest, the epiphany of health. And there is no other truer way to health other than releasing the nerve supply from the brain that's been blocked and turning it on and letting it do what it's supposed to do. And the medical profession just uses drugs. And what are they going to do? Drugs and more drugs. And so we're losing out if the whole country follows the drug route. If they follow chiropractic, and I can see that happening, we're going to have much better health throughout the whole world, and the medical profession in strength and power and function will go down.
Yeah. And they will learn also what health is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they will learn. And they have a great position. We know that, you know, when they're needed. But when you talk about health, it's a different story than talking about sickness, right? And I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. I want to thank both of you. You know, Julie, you were here to, you know, support your dad. I don't think you needed any support at all. I mean, I could have just put in the mic the whole time and he would have just kept going. But Julie, we will connect in the next few weeks. We're going to get our own leadership line. I just want you both to know that I love and appreciate you. And, you know, David, I know we were together recently, as early as we were just in Nashville together maybe 2 months ago. And it was such a pleasure to see you, and Julie, a pleasure to see you. And I hope I hope you're using that 33 Principles leather-bound book that you won in the raffle, I don't know how you won it, but you certainly got it in the raffle. But I also want to thank you for all the time and all the energy and all the service that you've delivered, you know, not just to our profession, but to humanity. And, you know,
It's been my pleasure.
yeah. And I know that. And that's why I want to thank you, because you've done it because it's something that you wanted to do and something that you were gifted to do, blessed to do, and destined to do after hearing the story. So thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for organizing this and you know, making sure everything's working well. I appreciate you so much. You know that my heart always goes out to you, being classmates. So
Back at you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you're welcome. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another Life West Leadership Line. There's so many people out there like David Mayer, that we need to bring on, that you could hear more, you know, hear the stories and hear, you know, where they came from and just, you know, whether it's the struggles, tribulations, the triumphs, it doesn't matter. You know, there are so many dynamic chiropractors, you know, like David, and I just thank you so much, David, for us to be able to have this time together. And thank you for being with us, for listening to us, for constantly coming back every week and hearing our Life Leadership Line or our Life by Life West that I do with my wife. And please keep coming back. Please share these. Make sure other people get to see these videos, and so that they can be able to, you know, really understand where we come from in chiropractic and the heart that we serve with. So until I see you again, I'll bid you adieu, and I'll see you at our next leadership line. And keep loving those around you, hugging those around you, and making sure that people stay well connected and unsubluxated. Okay. See you later. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.